Hi, I'm Emily. My mother mocked me at our family dinner table after I left work early to show up. She said, "You're just bitter because Sierra succeeded." No one defended me, not my dad, not even my sister. They laughed, while wearing the watch I bought, in the house I've been paying for. And in that moment, I realized it wasn't just money they took. They took my place in the story. But what happened when I laid the receipts on the table? That's the part they never saw coming. I pulled into the driveway later than I should have. The sun had dipped low behind the neighbor's fence, and the house looked the same as always. Trimmed hedges, porch light already on, and my dad's old pickup angled like it hadn't moved in weeks. I was still in scrubs from the hospital, no time to change, and my hair was tied back in a loose bun I'd thrown together in the car mirror. Inside, it was quiet, but not the comforting kind. Just too quiet. The kind that says you're already late without a single word. The table was set. Long-stemmed wine glasses, silverware lined up like they were expecting someone more important. Sierra's place setting looked like something off a wedding Pinterest board. Crystal napkin ring, the cloth folded into a perfect leaf shape. Mine? Just a napkin. Wrinkled. Tossed to the side of my plate like a forgotten tissue. Henrietta caught my eye, and with that soft, syrupy voice of hers said, "You don't mind, do you? You've never been picky like Sierra." I sat down without answering. Because what was I supposed to say? Sierra launched into her story midway through dinner. Something about being interviewed on a local morning show. Everyone nodded and smiled. Eldon even clinked his fork against his wine glass like it was some grand occasion. I smiled too. Polite. Quiet. Henrietta turned to me, that same tight smile she always wore when she was about to twist the knife. "Not everyone's meant for the spotlight, honey. You've always been more behind the scenes." The table went quiet. A small, awkward laugh floated from someone. I think it was Aunt May. Eldon just kept chewing. No one met my eyes. And I just sat there, face blank. Inside, though, it didn't feel small. It didn't feel like nothing. It felt like being carved out of the room piece by piece, like they were all eating dinner in the light. And I was in the dark corner, pretending not to notice. My eyes drifted to the fireplace mantel. That same wedding photo from Sierra's big day sat front and center, professionally framed. The one where I'd stood all the way to the edge because Sierra wanted the light to hit her right. The version they'd framed and displayed. I was cut out. Literally. Henrietta must have noticed me staring. She didn't look up from her plate when she said, "It was too big for the frame." Like that explained it. Like that made it okay. That's when I knew. I had been trimmed out of more than just the picture. I picked up my wine glass, held it too tightly, knuckles pale. I told myself it didn't matter, that maybe they didn't realize, that maybe it was just thoughtless, not cruel. But I'd paid the electric last month when the lights were almost shut off, the mortgage 3 times last year when Henrietta said the bank was making errors, and Sierra's damn car payment when she forgot it over the holidays. If I stopped helping, would they even notice I was gone? Or would someone else just take my place as the invisible safety net? Henrietta's voice brought me back to the table. She was slicing pie now, passing the first slice to Sierra like it was a coronation. "Sierra, you always put family first. You deserve every blessing coming your way." That's when it hit me. Not like a blow, more like a tide rolling in, quiet, steady, undeniable. And that's when I knew, if I didn't speak soon, I might disappear entirely. Nobody said anything after that last line. Henrietta kept pouring the wine, as if her words hadn't just cleaved something in half at the table. Sierra resumed talking about her upcoming gala. Caterers, sponsors, custom nameplates, the usual. Everyone jumped in with questions and praise, like the conversation had never shifted. I kept my head down, chewing quietly. My stomach wasn't really in it anymore. But I was still sitting there, still nodding, still part of the room. On the outside, at least. Eldon raised his glass again. "Here's to Sierra," he said. "The kind of drive this family was built on." Henrietta followed with, "She shines, and you're our constant, Emily. You keep us grounded." She smiled at me as if she'd handed me a compliment, as if being called dependable while invisible was something to be grateful for. That word, constant, it stuck, like it meant I was expected to stay still while everyone else moved up, like I wasn't someone who chose to help, just someone who couldn't leave. And maybe that was how they really saw me. 2 weeks earlier, I'd wired my mom $4,000 because the power company had called and said they were days away from cutting electricity. Henrietta had whispered through the phone, "Don't tell Sierra. She doesn't need that stress." And I didn't. Of course I didn't. I always did what was asked, without a thank you, without acknowledgement. I told myself it was for the family, but what kind of family keeps the light on with your money and the door shut in your face? Earlier that month, I'd paid the bill at Sierra's brunch, $600 for pastries, sparkling cider, and a thank you for coming gift bag I didn't get. Sierra never said anything. Henrietta had patted my shoulder and said, "You've always been good with money." She's got her hands full. That night, I went upstairs to the guest room, the one that used to be mine before Sierra moved out, and they remodeled everything for guests. I sat down at the small desk by the window, opened my laptop to check my bank account, and stared at the balance. Low again. One new email blinked at the top of the inbox. Subject line, "Quick favor." It was from Sierra. "Hey Em, could you float me $2K just until after the event? Please don't tell Mom. You're the only one I trust." I reread it 3 times. You're the only one I trust. She trusted me, just not enough to mention my name during her speeches, just enough to treat me like the family ATM she didn't want anyone else to know about. It wasn't even the money. I could have said yes, I probably would have, 3 months ago. But sitting there, in a room that used to be mine, reading a message like that was the part that stung. That was the part I couldn't ignore anymore. I closed the laptop without replying. Then I opened my journal and started writing a list, not of the money I'd given, but of what they never gave back. Promotions, birthdays, moments I paid for but never got credit for. Times I stood beside them in the dark while they stood in the spotlight and never looked back. The pattern was so obvious now. Sierra got the praise. I got the responsibility. They propped her up in public and leaned on me in private, and I let them. Because I thought that's what family meant. Because I thought helping without asking for recognition made me noble, not naive. "They don't see me," I whispered. "They see what I give them." And for once, saying it out loud didn't break me. It clarified everything. The next morning, Henrietta called. Her voice was casual. "Did you send your sister the money?" I looked out the window before answering. "No," I said. "She'll figure it out." There was a pause. Just long enough for me to picture her blinking, surprised, then a simple, "Oh." She didn't argue. She didn't thank me. She just moved on. But for me, that moment was everything. It was the first time I'd ever told them no. The first time I didn't jump in to rescue. And, if I'm honest, I felt guilty. Not because I owed it, but because I didn't know who I was without their problems on my back. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, listening to the blades turn like slow ticking seconds. What would happen if I pulled it all back? If I really stopped being the one they counted on? I didn't have the answer yet. But I knew one thing. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of the silence. I was ready to let it speak for me. A week passed, Quiet, stretched out kind of week. The kind where you still go to work, check your email, heat up leftovers. Everything looks normal from the outside. But inside, something shifts. You don't forget what was said. You just stop trying to explain it away. Henrietta called Friday morning. "Can you drop off those tax forms this weekend?" she asked, like she hadn't just pinned me to the wall with her words 6 nights ago. Saturday afternoon, I pulled up to the house, my parents' house. The lawn was trimmed, porch furniture freshly painted. A flower bed bloomed with tulips that hadn't been there a month ago. Funny how fast things got done when someone else paid for it. I stood on the porch with the manila envelope in one hand, binder in the other. I knocked. "You didn't have to knock," Henrietta said when she opened the door, brushing imaginary dust off her blouse. "This is your home too." I didn't say a word, just stepped inside, feeling every inch like a guest. And we sat in the den, the same old recliner across from me, still wrapped in that knitted blanket I made in college. She handed me a folder labeled Receipts Pending. I handed her the tax forms. That should have been it. But my eyes caught a file sitting under the stack. Deed, updated. Curiosity made me slide it free. I opened it before she could stop me. Her name was on it. Henrietta Braddock, sole owner. Mine had been removed. Removed. No discussion, no warning. Not even a post-it note. I looked at her, quietly. She didn't flinch. Just waved a hand. "You're always traveling. It's easier this way. Tax purposes. And liability stuff. You know how it is." No apology. Not even a fake one. I didn't argue. I closed the folder. But it didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like something they'd decided a long time ago. My money could stay. My name could go. 7 years ago, I'd co-signed the mortgage, back when Eldon said, "It's just to help the loan get approved." It's still the family's home. Back when I thought helping meant something. Back when I believed in temporary sacrifices. We moved into the kitchen so she could prep for Sierra's birthday brunch. She handed me a bag of oranges and pointed at the juicer. Same routine as always. Henrietta wore the Cartier watch I gave her last Christmas, the one I'd spent 3 months saving for, skipping a dental appointment to afford it. I hadn't even taken the tag off before I boxed it in tissue paper. A neighbor dropped by, laughing about how elegant everything looked. Henrietta smiled wide. "Sierra picked out this watch for me. She has such exquisite taste, doesn't she?" I looked at her. She didn't blink, just kept smiling. I squeezed the orange, the rind catching on the edge of the blade. I didn't correct her, because I already knew what she was doing. It wasn't just a watch, it was a story being rewritten right in front of me. After the cake was done and the kitchen cleaned, I headed to the front door. The mailbox stuck slightly, but I tugged it open and pulled out a property tax envelope. It wasn't addressed to both of us like before, just Henrietta. I snapped a photo, tucked it into my bag. Back in the car, I sat for a moment with the engine running. "I've paid for a house I don't live in," I said out loud. "That I don't own. For people who no longer see me." It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like inventory. That evening, I sat at my desk and opened a new spreadsheet. Title: Family Contributions, Unacknowledged. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just started typing. It was a Thursday evening when I saw it. Sierra's company gala, tagged on a mutual friend's social media. Picture-perfect lighting, charcuterie boards, live jazz quartet. What caught my eye, though, wasn't the people. It was the yard. My parents' yard. The patio I paid to refinish. The lights I paid to install. My monthly mortgage money twinkling in the background while I sat in Denver, uninvited. There'd been no text, no call, no invitation, not even a mention in passing. I stared at the photo for a few seconds. Then I closed the app, stood up, and started packing a small overnight bag. Not out of pettiness, just curiosity. A question needed answering. If I showed up, would anyone notice? By the time I pulled up to the house, the sun was dipping and the music had already started. I parked a little down the street, walked slowly. I wore black, nothing flashy. I carried my phone in one hand like a clipboard. I didn't want to stand out. I just wanted to see what they'd built without me. No one noticed when I slipped through the side gate. The backyard had been transformed. String lights overhead, a white tent stretched across the lawn, tables with handwritten place cards, trays of shrimp cocktail and stuffed mushrooms. The banner said, "Congratulations, Sierra, our beacon of brilliance." I hovered near the edge, listening. People laughed, clinked glasses, took selfies in front of a step and repeat. There were framed photos hanging along the fence. One caught my eye. It was Sierra's college graduation, smiling with her cap in hand. I remembered taking that photo. I remembered standing behind the lens while everyone else posed. Under the frame, it read, "Captured by close family friends." I didn't feel angry, not yet, just cold. Then Sierra tapped the mic, called for quiet. "None of this would be possible without my family's unwavering support," she said, "especially Mom and Dad." I waited for my name. It never came. A woman I didn't recognize approached me near the catering table. "You did a great job setting this up," she said. "Are you with the event planning team?" I blinked. Before I could respond, she was already gone. Sierra spotted me next. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, but she recovered fast. "Thanks for coming. You didn't need to." Henrietta appeared behind her like clockwork, leaned in close and said, "Don't make this about you." I almost laughed. I really did. I walked into the house, through the kitchen, and down the hallway toward what used to be my bedroom. The door had a sticky note on it now. "Storage. Do not block." Inside, boxes lined the walls. Christmas decor. Sierra's awards. Old tax stuff. In the corner, I spotted one labeled, "Mortgage, Emily's copies." I opened it. Inside were printed receipts, check stubs, notes I'd written to myself, my own handwriting on folded papers, copies of checks I'd written for repairs, bills, extras. Things I'd paid for but never talked about, their names, my money. It wasn't just a storage room, it was a closet full of erased history. I took out my phone and started taking photos. Quietly. Deliberately. You can't claim to build something from scratch when you pave the road with someone else's sacrifices. I didn't say it out loud, but I thought it hard. I stepped back outside just as the toast was wrapping up. Henrietta was dabbing her eyes like someone had just given a eulogy. I didn't say goodbye, didn't interrupt, didn't ask to be noticed. I walked past them, past the champagne glasses and the clapping hands. I paused just long enough to fold a napkin into the same leaf shape they gave Sierra the night I was told I was just dependable. I left it on the nearest table. Nobody saw me. Good. I drove home in silence. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, binder open, printer humming. I printed everything: bank transfers, emails, texts, photos, scans. I clipped it all into a thick black binder and wrote on the cover, "Receipts don't lie." I wasn't angry they forgot me. I was angry they expected me to stay silent. The storm started around 9, wind sharp against the windows, distant thunder rolling in like it was thinking through what it wanted to say. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, a mug of cold coffee off to the side, and a yellow legal pad flipped open. The spreadsheet was already halfway built. Family contributions, unacknowledged. Row by row, I started typing. $2,200, Sierra's emergency dental work. $1,500, covered her layoff during the pandemic. $8,000, backyard renovation, patio stones, lighting, even the contractor deposit. The numbers added up faster than I expected. Somewhere past $60,000. I scrolled back up and just stared at the total. My stomach didn't turn, my hands didn't shake. That part of me was already gone. It wasn't rage, it was clarity. This wasn't one mistake or two. This was a structure, a system, a habit built by them and enforced by me. Quietly, proudly, and always, always alone. Around 10:30, I went to grab the mail I hadn't touched in 2 days, mostly junk. One slip caught my attention: missed delivery, high-value item, signature required. I hadn't ordered anything. I scanned the QR code, pulled up the tracking. Retailer, luxury goods, Chanel. Chanel? I called the store. They confirmed delivery was attempted. A $200 purse, shipped to my address. Charged to a credit line I hadn't used in 3 years, tied to an account my mother promised was closed. Of course it wasn't. The woman on the phone sounded bored. Says here it was a gift, billed to Emily Braddock, purchased by Sierra Braddock. She read it like a script, like it didn't mean anything. I asked for a copy of the receipt. She emailed it within minutes. The charge was real. I forwarded it to myself, opened my binder, and slid a printed copy into a new section. Luxury spending, unauthorized. Then I sat back in my chair, lights still flickering outside, and asked the room, if I hadn't caught that, how long would this keep happening? No one answered, obviously. But in my head, I heard younger me, 27, just starting to save, sending money home thinking she was doing the right thing. I whispered, you weren't selfish, you were surviving. And for the first time, I believed it. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Myra's name on the screen. She used to work at the local bank, handled a few of our family consolidations years back. Hey, Em, she said. This might be out of line, but I saw your name come up on that Chanel transaction. Your mom said it was a gift from you. Said you were spoiling your sister again. I didn't respond right away. She continued gently. You might want to check your credit file. There are some odd flags. After we hung up, I pulled up my credit report, linked accounts, charges I never approved, auto renewals, subscriptions. None of it was mine. My mother hadn't just borrowed from me, she'd built an entire world that leaned against my name and assumed I'd never speak. I opened a folder, started printing, bank statements, screenshots, Myra's voicemail, saved and uploaded. I even dug up the notarized form for that old joint account. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't pacing, I was preparing, 1 page at a time. The binder grew thicker by the hour. Each sheet went into a clear sleeve, labeled, indexed, cross-referenced. I titled the front, Ledger of Debt and Disrespect. I scanned a copy to the cloud, another to a backup drive. I emailed a third to Lisa, my old college roommate, now an attorney. Then I opened my journal. I wrote one sentence. This ends with me. At midnight, my phone buzzed. Text from Henrietta. Hey love, we're having a small family thing Sunday. Would love for you to come. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an expectation. I put the phone down, stared at the binder for a long moment. I wasn't coming to be part of the family, I said out loud. I was coming to deliver the invoice. The morning of my presentation, I woke up clear-headed for the first time in weeks. The slides were ready, the talking points rehearsed. I'd earned this moment, no shortcuts, no handouts, just grit and overtime and weekends where I said no to sleep and yes to deadlines. At the office, I settled into the conference room early, set my laptop down, pulled up the deck, straightened my blazer. This was mine, no one else's fingerprints on it. My phone buzzed once, then again, then a third time, in rapid succession. I ignored the first two, but that third one, it lit up something old and automatic in me. I picked up. Henrietta's voice was cheerful, too cheerful. Hey, sweetheart, The caterer just showed up for Sierra's bridal tasting. We need to pay them now or they're walking. Can you Venmo $600 real quick? I'll pay you back. There was no, how are you? No, good luck today? No, I'm proud of you. Just a bill. I didn't respond. Not really. I told her I was in a meeting and hung up before the edge in my voice cracked into something else. Then I walked up front, plugged in my laptop, and gave the best presentation of my life. Afterwards, there were claps, smiles, a pat on the back from the VP, talk of a promotion in Q4. But when I walked out to my car, parked 2 blocks down in the only spot I could find, the smile slipped off my face before I reached the door handle. I got in, shut the door, and sat there. I wasn't crying because of her call. I was crying because I knew I would have sent the money if she hadn't called during my moment. And that scared me. It scared me how quickly I still defaulted to their needs before my own, like I was programmed to put their fires out with my water. What would happen if I stopped being the responsible one? I asked the windshield. The silence that answered wasn't cold this time. It was freeing. 3 days passed, quiet ones. I worked, slept. Declined Henrietta's next 2 calls. On Friday, a small envelope arrived. Ivory paper, gold trim. My name, handwritten. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. I sat with it for 10 minutes before opening it. Inside was a thank you card. You've always been the strong one. Thank you for supporting us all these years. No name, no check, no explanation. Just a sentence that didn't say what it meant. I stared at it. My fingers wanted to tear it in half, but I slid it into the back sleeve of my binder instead, right behind the Chanel receipt. That thank you didn't feel like closure. It felt like the final insult dressed in politeness. That evening, I got a call from Uncle Frank. I hadn't heard his voice in months. "Hey, Em," he said. "I just heard about the bridal tasting. Didn't see your name on the guest list. Thought that was strange." I explained the facts. Not the feelings. Just the truth. Plain and simple. When I finished, there was a pause. "You know," he said slowly, "you were always the one holding the ladder so everyone else could climb." He let that sit, then added, "But sometimes the ladder needs to walk away." It was the first time someone got it. No lectures, no apologies on their behalf. Just truth, bare and warm. After we hung up, I took the card from the binder and set it next to my laptop. Not as a token of gratitude, but as a line in the sand. I pulled out a fresh folder and labeled it Family Financial Summary. Not because they asked, because I was done keeping quiet. Later that night, I scanned the last of my records. The rain had started again, soft this time, not angry. I closed the laptop, turned off the light, and stood to stretch when my phone dinged. A text from Henrietta. "Can you come home this weekend? We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time. Then, almost without thinking, I went to the closet and pulled out my overnight bag. The one I hadn't touched since the gala. She didn't know I was already packing, but not for a visit. For closure. Saturday morning, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by printouts and post-it notes. Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th folder, a loose paper slid out, half tucked under a stack of receipts. The handwriting hit me before the words did. "Emily will handle it. She always does." No greeting, no punctuation. Just scribbled like a side note, maybe about a bill, maybe about another forgotten task. It didn't matter what it was about. What mattered was that it wasn't a request, it was an expectation. Like I was a button on the coffee maker. Press, pour, perform. I read it twice. Then again. Something in me went quiet, not sad, not angry, just done. I pulled out the binder, cleared the table. Plastic sleeves, tabs, color-coded index. Every receipt in order. Mortgage tabs, utility bills, A full breakdown of Sierra's wedding invoices. I slipped the napkin, folded like a leaf, into the front flap. The same napkin that sat beside her plate at that first dinner. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it because if they weren't going to remember what I gave, I was going to make damn sure they couldn't deny it. I showered, dressed in slate gray, neutral, no jewelry, no makeup, just intention. On the drive to Springfield, I stopped at a gas station halfway through. Frank was there, leaning on the hood of his truck like he had all the time in the world. He didn't say anything at first, just hugged me. Then he handed me a white envelope. "In case it goes sideways," he said. Inside was a flash drive and a note. 5 words. "You matter, and you always did." My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. As I stepped back toward the car, he added, "Do what they never expected you to do. Be seen." It was close to 5 when I pulled up to the house. The yard looked like nothing had ever happened. Porch light on, wind chimes dancing in the soft breeze. Henrietta opened the door before I knocked. "You're early," she said, lips pursed. The table was already set. Sierra in a sundress, Eldon nursing his scotch, 2 cousins I barely recognized chatting near the hallway, the same furniture, the same smells. Sierra wore the bracelet I pawned my own laptop to buy for our mother years ago. Henrietta had said she didn't like it. Now Sierra wore it like it was her birthright. Henrietta gestured toward the dining room. "I told them you'd come through." I didn't reply. I walked to the table and placed the binder beside my plate. The soft thud echoed more than I expected. Dinner began. The first course was salad, spring mix, and goat cheese. No one talked to me, but I didn't mind. I wasn't there for pleasantries. Henrietta started in her usual tone. "Sierra's gala next month is going to be incredible. We've locked down the venue and catering, just waiting on the photographer's deposit." Then she turned to me, like she was asking if I could pass the butter. "Emily, could you handle the deposit for the photographer?" I reached for the binder, flipped to the tab labeled Sierra, Weddings, pulled out a sheet. "Before we move forward," I said calmly, "let's review what's already been covered." I placed the summary on the table. $7,300 in categorized payments. Photographer, florist, cake, parking permits. Sierra blinked. Eldon shifted in his chair. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain myself. I just let the numbers talk. And they were loud. Silence fell over the table like a wool blanket. Nobody moved. No one reached for their forks. I looked across at Henrietta. She wasn't smiling anymore. "I've brought receipts," I said. "Let's eat truth tonight." And for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. I arrived early, binder in one hand, breath steady. I wasn't nervous. Not this time. I'd ironed out the emotions the night before, line by line, page by page. I knew what I came to do, and I wasn't here to be forgiven. The dining room looked like something out of a magazine. Place cards printed in cursive, candles flickering gently, silver polished like they expected royalty. Mine said, "Emily, guest." Henrietta greeted me with a tight smile, sweet and sharp. "We're so happy you're here. Let's enjoy ourselves, no drama, I gave her a nod, not a smile, not a yes. Scanning the room, nothing had changed. Same chandelier, same overdressed table, same thin layer of performative warmth. The room was staged, but I wasn't acting. Appetizers were served. Small talk passed around like salad. Sierra beamed, bragging about her upcoming house deal. Eldon chimed in, "We're just proud to help where we can." I reached into my folder, pulled out one document, laid it flat between the wine glasses. Bank statement. His name, $120,000. Opened 18 months ago. I didn't raise my voice. "This was opened while you were asking me to cover your mortgage." Eldon stared like the paper had punched him. Henrietta froze, fork mid-air. Sierra whispered, "What is that?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The page said everything. I opened the binder slowly and placed it in the center of the table with both hands. It landed with a soft thud that sounded louder than it should have. Tabs lined the edges. Mortgage, utilities, car payments, medical, tuition, gifts disguised as loans. 3 packets were passed around, a financial summary, total contributions, and itemized receipts. Silence followed. $78,400, I said, since 2016. I turned to Sierra. Dental emergency, $1,800, paid on a Sunday night while you were in Cabo. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Henrietta stood. You said you wanted to help. This is unfair. You're trying to humiliate us. I reached for another page, slid it across. An email. Her words. Sierra picked out the watch. She has such exquisite taste. She said that to a neighbor, about the Cartier I'd saved 3 months to buy. I looked at her, not with hate, with truth. What's unfair is rewriting history while I'm still alive to remember it. Her mouth opened, closed. Then Frank's voice cut through from the far end of the table. She's not humiliating you. She's just refusing to disappear. That landed harder than any number on the binder. No one said anything for a while. Sierra lowered her eyes. Guilt started to bloom where pride used to sit. Eldon placed his utensils down. One slow, deliberate movement. Henrietta? She had nothing. No comebacks. No spin. I stood, pulled the folded napkin leaf from my pocket, and laid it in front of her. That was always yours, I said. So is the silence that follows it. And then I picked up the binder, walked toward the door. Henrietta's voice chased after me. So what now? I stopped, turned halfway back. Now, I said, soft but firm. I send you the invoice. And this time, I won't forget to charge interest. The light came through soft, golden. I didn't rush to get out of bed. No alarms, no tasks from anyone. I lay there for a while, listening to the quiet of my own apartment. For the first time in months, maybe years, there was no knot sitting in my chest. No waiting for the other shoe to drop kind of tension. Just stillness. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. The binder sat where I left it, closed, on the bottom shelf of the bookcase. It hadn't been touched since the dinner. I didn't feel the urge to open it, not anymore. Instead, I opened my laptop. There was a job offer waiting in my inbox, Seattle. I had received it 2 weeks ago, asked for more time to decide. I clicked accept. No guilt, no second guessing. That was the first decision I'd made purely for me. Later that morning, I stepped out to pick up groceries. On the floor outside my apartment door was an envelope, cream-colored, no postage, just placed there. Inside, a note. We never expected things to go this way. We're still family. Please call us when you're ready. It was unsigned, but I didn't need a signature. Along with the note was a check for $15,000. The memo line read, partial reimbursement. I sat down on the couch, check in one hand, the note in the other. And I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel moved. I just felt settled. Not all debts can be paid with money. But maybe they were trying, in their own warped, too-late way. I folded the note once, set the check on the table. I'd decide later what to do with it. That afternoon, I met Frank at a small cafe a few blocks from my building. The air smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon. We didn't talk about them. We talked about weather, baseball, coffee in Seattle. Before we left, he handed me a photo, an old one. I was 12, standing in the middle of a family picture, arms wrapped tight around my dad's waist. Frank said, You were always the center. They just built around you and never said it. I didn't respond. Didn't need to. That moment didn't call for words. It just needed to be felt. Back at home, I walked to my desk and pulled the check from the table. I shredded it. Not because I was spiteful, but because I was done counting. Done keeping ledgers for a family that only showed up for the math, never the meaning. The note, though, I kept it. Tucked it inside my journal, next to the job offer letter. A reminder, maybe, of what was given, what wasn't said, what I no longer owed. That night, I packed the last of my things for Seattle. Folded sweaters, boxes labeled keep and donate. I didn't take the binder. I didn't need it anymore. Just before bed, I got an email from Sierra. Short. Just a few lines. I'm handling the mortgage now. It's harder than I thought. I see it now. I hope someday you'll let me visit. I reread it twice, then archived it. Not all wounds need to be reopened. Some can stay closed, acknowledged, and left in peace. At sunrise, I locked the apartment for the last time. I carried a single suitcase, my journal, and a folded napkin, the leaf-shaped one, tucked into the final page. I smiled, waved to my neighbor, stepped into the cab. For the first time, the story that mattered most was the one I was writing for myself.